Welcome to the Reflections and Confessions of the $50 Billion Man. As you'll see on the trip, it is pissing rain in Edinburgh. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And as we left the airport, there was a couple of Scottish guys walking behind us, one of which said, "Lovely day." Now, whether he was being sarcastic or not remains to be seen. We don't really know. We'll never know. But having left about mid-30 weather to weather now, it's about 10 degrees. It's not so unusual. But it also brings home a point. As I've mentioned in a previous podcast, I don't do any work on planes. I normally, all I have is a few glasses of wine and I watch movies. And on the first flight to Doha, I watch a couple of movies. And then the flight that we just landed here from Doha to Edinburgh, I saw a couple of movies. But one of the movies was a movie called Slow West. And I only bring this up because it's about a Scottish kid who was part of the Cavendish family. In fact, I think I know a Lord Cavendish. And his love of his life left Scotland because her father accidentally killed Lord Cavendish. So this 16-year-old kid didn't know anything, chased after her. And the movie's about this and the various episodes or sagas. And I think there's irony in this in life, because you can never underestimate how wrong you can be. In the end of the movie, or almost the end, the last 4 or 5 minutes, by accident, she winds up killing this 16-year-old kid, who's now about 18, shoots him in the chest. And after he spent 2 years traveling across the United States. And but I experience that almost every week with you mentees and my QLA mentees. Now, I actually have notes, because there's a number of things I wanted to mention on this podcast. And so the last 3 weeks that we've been gone, I've been writing down little bits of information to remind me to talk about certain things. Now, the first thing is, and I've alluded to it in 2 different podcasts, both this podcast and my, I believe, the Ask the $50 Billion Man podcast, that the mentor program will be having some changes next year. Which will be announced after the first of the year, but and it'll be more beneficial, more useful, because I've gone back and I've looked at the best practices since we formalized the mentor program in mid 2010, and I've looked at the kids, the kids that have benefited the most and have been able to have been the most successful, and so we've put some extra bells and whistles on the program, and based on what the kids have been able to make work faster, because QLA is about getting from point A to point B quickest, not the slow method. And even though the mentor program heretofore was up a year, it's not because you have to take a year. We've had people do it in a matter of a few months. We've had people very recently put their board together in 30, 40 days, find their accountants and lawyers in another 10 to 20 days, and have financial institutions standing ready for their projects all within 60 days, which is more or less how I did it. So what we're doing is we're changing the weekly reporting system and the Zoom call, which is the monthly Zoom call that the kids all participate in. So we can, there's no guarantees, but so we can more ensure with a higher probability that you get this done as quickly as humanly possible. And just in the seminar that we just finished in last week in October, and it's only a month ago, or not even quite a month ago, everybody, not everybody, but there's always somebody in a group that thinks that they can jump ahead and not follow the steps. And in the past, the people that have done that almost 100% of the time have failed. Because remember, what QLA does, it affords you the opportunity to do in 3 to 6 or 7 years, depending on how good you are in the industry, the economic cycle, etc., to accumulate the wealth that would normally you would accumulate in a generation. A generation, depending on what definition you use, between 20 and 25 years. So we're going to spruce up the mentor program, and we're going to make it more creative and more effective. The next thing I wanted to mention is the hardcore Christmas seminar is full, and although we've had some changes, last-minute changes, as with most things that have anything to do with life or reality, and so we've switched some personnel. A couple of the people that had signed up have some personal problems that they need to deal with, so they won't be coming. So because we had a waiting list, we were able to fill those up, no problem. I've also commented that I just started, which will be a new podcast, me reading Your First 100 Million. And we finished the first 2 episodes of me reading Your First 100 Million, where I'm reading through it, and I have author's notes. In other words, since some things have changed since 2009 when the second edition came out, I say author's note, and then I make a comment. And so those should be coming out in the next week or so, which will probably, based on this podcast, probably come out about the same time. So it'll be in December, probably mid-December. And I'm interested in your feedback. I've been asked in questions from your first Ask the $50 Billion Man, how is it that I was able to call, dating back to last June, July of 2014, that we were going to see $40 oil? And I even sarcastically said if oil gets into the breaks $20 oil, that I was going to be back in the oil business. As we video this, West Texas Intermediate, I believe yesterday, and this is the day after Thanksgiving. This is Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, was I think about $41.30. But it had hit 40, and 3 weeks ago, it broke 40, 39 something. And how is it that, Dan, that you were able to predict this or guess it or however you want to say it? And it's just based on 40 years of experience, having been successful in the energy business, and knowing that, in my judgment, and having been partners with the Kuwaiti government and having done business with some of the other Middle Eastern countries, that since their cost to produce oil is significantly lower, even the most expensive ones in the Middle East, than we are in the United States, that they were going to get tired of us dipping into their market share. They talked about it even back in the 80s. And they would eventually just let the spigots go and create a massive oversupply, which would drive the price of oil down. And so I surmised about a year and 4 or 5 months ago that it was going to happen. In fact, about 2 or 3 months ago, it actually did get down into the 40s. Now, with the advent of ISIS shooting down Russian planes and the ruble tumbling, and since the Russian economy is really based very much on the price of energy, all bets are off. A lot of the pundits are saying that the average price to produce at the wellhead in the United States is $20 a barrel at the wellhead. That's not including all the other expenses. So, of course, the other expenses add on to it. So anything that's at $40 a barrel, everybody in America just about is losing money. So it's not dissimilar to, some of the reasons that I can talk to, or when you're at the seminar, or when you send me questions and I can give you an answer just based on 40 years of experience, and because I've had the privilege of being in business with a lot of bright people. even somebody who's not as smart as me, and I am smart, but not as smart as me, has got to learn from all that. So what do I think is going to happen to energy? I don't know. I think we're going to stay in the 40 area a lot longer than everybody thinks, and we're going to see a lot of companies go out of business. Remembering back when I got in the energy business, oil was $41.40 a barrel, and it went down to about $8, $9 a barrel, depending on what benchmark you want to use. And more than 10,000 energy companies went out of business. And we haven't seen that yet, although we've seen a lot of companies go out of business in the United States. And with Obama killing the Canadian pipeline deal has just exacerbated the problem more. I get questions, and even though this isn't the Ask the $50 Billion Man podcast, that some of the big accounting firms are telling you that rolling fees or success fees aren't doable, or they don't do them, which isn't true. But there's a differentiation. You're not asking them to do audits. You're not asking them to do anything other than really due diligence and getting the deal done in corporate finance work, which they can do on a success basis. And the large accounting firms, the big four accounting firms, may have, in New York City, they probably have 40 officers, and that's a guess. Maybe it's only 20, maybe it's 60. But it's a numbers game, and you start with the much smaller accounting firms. I've got a mentee who started on number 99 largest accounting firm in the United States, and he worked his way up, and after he made a lot of very poor presentations to accounting firms, then he got a big four accounting firm, and a number of my kids still are able to get big four accounting firms. I have a young mentee in university. I think he's in his third year, and he is studying business, but he came up with the idea, which is quite a good idea, to start a consulting company in university. And he's gathered some of his very bright fellow students into putting a consulting company together, and he is gotten the endorsement, at least quasi-endorsement, from the university, and he's gotten some of his knowledgeable and learned professors to want to be part of the consulting company. Now, that wasn't my idea. He got the idea from attending the seminar about 4 or 5 months ago, and they're doing very well in building a base, and I'm curious to see how they do and when they get their first clients. Now, with the professors, if the professors have worldwide experience and not just academic experience, it could turn into be quite a little enterprise. And it was something that he thought of while he was at the seminar. One of the things that I look back upon when we started to look at instituting new changes for the mentor program is what worked in the 90s when we had a plethora of very successful guys, many of which were on my Hall of Fame, and several of which were at my 70th birthday a few months ago. And and so some of those changes I made in the seminar, and I've also made some of those changes to encapsulate the best practices in our reporting system on a weekly basis. And of course, we didn't have Zoom calls in those days, but they were different. The kids were different in the 90s. Of course, they didn't have as many distractions. The internet was just getting going. They didn't have all the things that you guys have to be distracted by. But there was a difference. Although we have added people since the 90s to the Hall of Fame. Of course, we didn't have a Hall of Fame in those days. But many of the people that made their wealth or created wealth are throwbacks, if you will, from the 90s. And so what we've done, even though the mentor program has only been really strictly formalized since mid-2010, so it's been out and around about 5 years, a little more than 5 years. We are, and even though it's been very successful, being a high-performance person isn't resting on your laurels. Being a high-performance person isn't just being satisfied. And that's why we continue to change. And i.e., that's why the wall of influencers, hall of fame, hall of shame, or wall of say, and why the seminar continues to change every seminar. And the 18 or 1900 slides that we have in the seminar, I use probably each seminar. I probably only use maybe 1,500, and there are different 1,500, and it's always based on who is in the group and how do I make the seminar the most germane. A couple of people have commented this format in the back of my extended wheelbase rolls, either going to the airport or coming from the airport. I seem more low-key, and which I found amusing. But at least coming this way that we're coming now, I'm normally coming from between 8 and 16 hours different time zone. So that means that I'm, and I haven't had that much sleep. So I guess maybe I'm tired. I'm not sure. When I'm going the other way, it's normally that's not the case because I'm coming from the castle to the airport. But it's normally at the crack of dawn, early in the morning, so maybe I'm not as quite as loud. As also, this is a different format. This is not me in front of the $50 billion man posters behind me. It's not me on YouTube during the seminars where I'm ranting and raving on my soapbox. So it is different. But the answers to the questions aren't, whether I'm answering them in the back of the rolls here or I'm answering them in front of the $50 billion man banners behind my back, it's going to be the same answer, but we talk about different subject matter. I've commented several times on YouTube, and I know talking about this is a journey, bullshit, is quite prevalent now with everybody and their dog. This is not a fucking journey, kids. A journey is the way you've lived your life heretofore. You've meandered. You got a job. If you went to school, you got a job, not because it was a job that you loved or you were obsessed with it. You got a job because you wanted to at least have a job out of school so you could work and pay your bills. Okay? And then normally your life is that way. You met somebody, you got along, you moved in, you had kids, either before or after you got married. You meander through life without much purpose. QLA is not a goddamn journey. Okay? A journey means it's not planned. This is a fucking plan. This is a system. QLA is a 7-step system. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Not 1, 3, 6, 7. Not 1, 2, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I couldn't disagree with any more or any stronger than with the guys that say that their system is a journey, and it just isn't. And if you want a journey, this is the wrong fucking deal to get involved in. And I'm certainly the wrong fucking coach because I don't believe in that. Now, I'm not saying that part of my life hasn't been a journey because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing when I was younger. And most of you, and especially since our demographics have switched so dramatically to now, before my demographics were 35 to 55. Now my demographics are, and mostly from 45 to 55, people that are interested in what I have to say. Now my demographics are 19 to 35, with a preponderance in the high 20s. The last seminar we gave, we only had 4 people in the 40s, Everybody else was, save two, was in their 20s. And so, I mean, the kids are getting smarter. They realize that, they didn't learn much. I think I mentioned in a podcast before, I don't know if it was this podcast or Ask the $50 Billion Man podcast, we had a kid that in the seminar that was 17, who just had his 18th birthday not a couple months ago, and he was sick to his stomach because of how little he had accomplished in 18 years. Well, you think about when you were 17 or 18. I mean, you just wanted to fuck around, probably go out and get drunk, come in late. I'm not saying I didn't do the same. So some kids are really, you take this stuff much more serious. I'm not suggesting that this stuff with ISIS isn't changing the world, because it sure as hell is. But it's not changing what the QLA system is, whether we're in a recession or not. Now, if the world goes into a worldwide depression, with some adjustments, QLA will still work. But I don't foresee that happening. The unfortunate incidents with the bombing of Paris and these other tragic incidents, the world's a different place. It's a different place. But as we go across the bridge here out of Edinburgh, is this what bridge is this? Fourth Road Bridge. I mean, Scotland's been here forever, and I've been here over 30 years, and it hasn't changed that goddamn much. I mean, and it's not going to change in another 300 years. And Guthrie Castle's been here over 500 years. But this works no matter where you are, where you're from. And Andrew Carnegie, who's not from too far from here, left, depending on which story you want to believe, between 7 and 12 years to America, and founded the steel business as we know it. And much of what I teach, coach, is exactly what Mr. Carnegie says. And he only had 4 rules for success, for financial success. He didn't call it success; he called it financial success. The number one key or tip, if you want to call it, is financial motive must prevail. Now, he said that in about between 1885 and 1900. Financial motive must prevail. He didn't say the Maslow's hierarchy of fucking needs. He didn't say lovey-wovey, go to your goddamn daughter's ballet. He said financial fucking motive must prevail. And I don't disagree with it some 115 or 20 or 30 years later. If you don't think money can buy happiness, you don't know where to shop. And again, I tell you kids that if you believe in global warming and if you believe in all that stuff, and I'm not telling you not to, go out and make a bunch of money and then do something about it, like Mr. Gates has done, Mr. Buffett, and many of the other very wealthy guys on the planet. They've gone and they've created wealth, and then they've used that wealth to do good around the world in a smaller way. That's what Sally and I have attempted to do the last several years. But I mean, interest rates are low, and they're still low. Whether Yellen increases or decreases the money flow really doesn't have much to do with it, but interest rates aren't going to be low forever. And with low interest rates, dreams come true. And you got an opportunity right now, and we're having kids right now put dream teams together really quickly. Everybody comes out of the gate at a different pace. Some come out like jackrabbits, and some come out like tortoises. But as long as you don't quit, and as long as you keep moving, they can't beat you. They can't beat you. I will spend the next 3 weeks preparing for the Christmas seminar, and by the time this airs, it'll probably be just more or less on the eve of the Christmas seminar, and asked if I'm going to give another Christmas seminar, hardcore, and the answer is I don't know. For those of you, the devotees or pundits that follow me closely, realize this is more or less serendipity that we're doing this. I mentioned it on the YouTube, and then we had a bunch of people that were interested in it, so we had one. Whether we have one again over next Christmas is, I'm sure this is going to go really well, but whether I'm willing to give up my Christmas again is, still remains to be seen. But it does prove that there are people that are willing to give up one of the most special times of the year to further success. When I came here in 1984, I used to tease the Brits. This is still the case, by the way, that the Brits spend more fucking time planning their fucking holidays than their life. When I got here in 84, I still remember one of the big partners of one of the big law firms that represented me. I couldn't get a hold of him, and my assistant at that time couldn't get a hold of him. And so I finally called and talked to his assistant myself. And I'm not proud of this, but I made her cry on the phone. I made her give me his phone number in Marbella. And I called him because in those days they used to say, "Oh, he's at the weekend," and that normally started Friday early afternoon and ended midday Monday. And in those days they didn't give home phone numbers, and very few people had cell phones. And so when I called him, and he was the senior partner of a big law firm, and he said, "So and so here," and I said, "Pena here," and he said, "How did you get this number?" And I said, "I browbeat your assistant, but I just wanted to tell you in person, you're fucking fired." And but he had planned this holiday in Marbella. Of course, he goes to the same fucking place every year, so I don't know how much planning. But I mean, when I first came here, people had bought tickets and to go to places around the world. Normally, if you're British, where the sun was, because as you can see, the rain, there isn't so much sun here, and they plan their holidays like that. Well, I'm here to say that although it's not quite as bad as it was in the mid '80s, it's still worldwide. We plan our holidays. We spend more time on our holidays than we do planning our life. Thank you very much. I look forward. I won't be doing another Reflections and Confessions podcast until I leave Scotland, which will be after the first of the year. But until then, look at the other podcasts. Peace.